From your world news headquarters on the World Wide Web, it's time for your daily dose of sanity. This is the Meria Heller Show. Meria Heller is a published author, founder of the Universal Wheel, a lifestyle and philosophy based on our interconnectedness to all living things, a Reiki master, and delivers the news with spiritual views. How many intuitive news decoders, animal rights activists, and vegetarian broadcasters are there? Just one, Meria. Meria has provided independent news for a smart audience for over 13 years now on the Meria Heller Show, available at Meria.net. MERIA.net. And now, here is your host, the mouth that roars, Meria Heller.
Good afternoon, world. Meria Heller here, alive and kicking. How's everybody doing? I know you've all been waiting with anticipation for my guest today. And for those of you that aren't aware, let me tell you who he is. It's the one and only Jesse Ventura back on the show. He's the former independent governor of Minnesota. Too bad we don't have more of them. He's also a former U.S. Navy SEAL, a professional wrestler, movie actor, a visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He's been on the show several times with his other books, American Conspiracies, 63 Documents the Government Doesn't Want You to Read. He's also the host and executive producer of Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura on TruTV. But today we're going to talk about what I think, my opinion, is his best book ever. DemoCRIPS and ReBLOODlicans, No More Gangs in Government. And I got to tell you, I love this book. Put this book together with Greg Pallas's latest book on election fraud. And it's all you need to read, and everyone needs to read it before this next election. So without further ado, good afternoon, Jesse Ventura.
Hi, Meria. How are you today? And let me add something else. I got some good news last week from my son.
Oh.
And that is that the third season of Conspiracy Theory, the TV show, will start November the 7th at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central on TruTV.
Oh, excellent. That is
We actually did 8 more conspiracies, but they're only going to air 7. They won't do the one on the TSA.
Oh, well, and we already know that you've gone around and around with the TSA, that's for sure. I have to tell you, the title of this book is very catchy. I've been using those words myself. But for a lot of people out there, Jesse, that don't know what gangs are and they don't know about the Crips and the Bloods, can you enlighten them so we can see where the title came from?
Sure. Well, it was something that I heard the two parties called back when I was governor, and I kind of laughed it off at the time. But the more I looked at the two political parties and how they function, the more I realized that they are identical to the street gangs. The Crips and the Bloods, of course, are the two notorious Los Angeles street gangs. And what's very interesting about it, Meria, is that the Crips, or the DemoCRIPS, the Crips colors are blue, the gang colors. Well, what's a blue state? That's a Democrat state.
Right.
The Bloods, naturally, their color is red. What's a red state? That's a ReBLOODlican or Republican state, which is red. So they've even stole the colors of the infamous L.A. street gangs.
Well, or vice versa.
And they also are the same way in this aspect. As a gang member or party member, as it may be, you owe your first allegiances to the gang or the party. Your second allegiance is to how the gang or party makes money. So it's identical to the two political parties. Your allegiance must be with the party first, and then, of course, it's with the financiers of the party or the gang second. We, the people, might come in third or fourth, maybe.
Well, maybe I don't even think third or fourth, to tell you the truth. Jesse, as a former SEAL, I have to ask you, what do you think about this SEAL that came out with this book on the Bin Laden raid in Abbottabad?
I have no problem with it. And, because I'd like to hear from boots on the ground. I'd like to hear from a guy who was actually on the op. It's pretty intriguing. and to hear what went down, how it went down, and all that. Obviously, the government doesn't like it because I hear they're giving the guy just nothing but trouble over it. But here's my position. The Navy SEALs and all of our military and everything in our government operates on our tax dollars. We have every right to know what our tax dollars are being spent on. Every right. Now, I understand there are secret missions, like when they went after allegedly bin Laden. And so you have to keep that undercover until it's over. But I mean, it's 1 year after the fact now, roughly. Why shouldn't we get to know about it? I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Well, you know, there are people that are saying that it looks like a psyop because the book has been written almost like to convince people bin Laden was there in Abbottabad.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to read it to see. Or could they have been deceived too? Was it a bin Laden look-alike that they killed?
Right.
You know, the one thing about them, people need to understand, when you send in the SEAL team, there won't be any Miranda rights given.
Right.
You know, and they operate the same way as they did when I was there. You go in, you give one opportunity to surrender. If the target does not exercise that option, the target is immediately eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple.
All right. Well, what do you think about Eric Holder talking about prosecuting that SEAL?
He's talked about that?
Yes, he has, actually, in the last day.
Well, I'll tell you what, it wouldn't surprise me. Because of this government of ours. It's the most secretive government that's ever been, and here they got what should be considered a hero. What are they going to do now, put him in jail?
Well, look what they did to Bradley Manning. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but I'm opposed to that naturally. But Bradley Manning, you know, they went after him. But this guy is a legitimate. Manning wasn't a hero to begin with. All the SEALs are anyway.
Right.
You know, it'll be interesting. I'll tell you what, if you know, and I'll say this in all honesty, today I'm 60 years old. If today I'd be a conscientious objector.
Wow.
Because all the wars in my lifetime, and I'm post-World War II, I was born in 1951, I can't tell you one war that has been fought where our country's been in any threat.
Exactly. Well, you know,
we were in no threat in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. We were in no threat in Korea. There was no threat to our country in, Afghanistan or Iraq. There was no threat whatsoever. I mean, yeah, we went after Al-Qaeda, but they're not a country. And in my last book, we showed the RAND Corporation did a thing on counterterrorism, and they said the percentage of military solution against terrorism is 7%, and yet we've thrown all our eggs into a basket that only has a 7% solution rate. They said clearly intelligence gathering and good police work were 40% apiece. So invading countries and occupying them is not the recipe for defeating terrorism. So clearly terrorism is just an excuse for us to be over there, infiltrating and invading Middle Eastern countries.
I agree, and it always seems like it's countries that can't defend themselves.
Well, here's an interesting thing to think about. The next on the list is Iran. We're probably within the next year or two, we're going to go to war with Iran. Well, why do you think Iran wants to get the nuclear bomb? Because we don't mess with any country that's got a nuke. We only mess with countries that don't. So all of these, if you want to call them third world countries or whatever, they all strive to get nuclear capabilities so that the United States will then leave them alone.
Well, you can't blame them if everybody else, including Israel, let's face it, Israel's got hundreds of nuclear weapons. Why shouldn't they have them?
Well, and the point is we don't mess with anybody that's got nuclear weapons. The United States only bullies people who don't have them. So it's in the best interest of these countries to try to get it, which I don't agree with. I think we should abolish all nuclear weapons and get rid of all of them.
Hey, I agree with that. I've been screaming about that for the last 40 years. You and I are in the same age group, and I don't remember a time where we weren't involved in a war, whether it was overt or covert.
Yeah.
So another question for you as an ex-SEAL. I don't even know if ex-SEAL even is real. I guess once you're a SEAL, you always are. What do you think about Obama's presidential kill list?
I think it's horrid. I mean, you know, where they used the drone to kill that American citizen and his son. I think that it violates the Constitution, because if you're an American citizen, you deserve a trial. You deserve a trial from your peers, you know, to prove that you're guilty, even if you've committed treason. It requires multiple witnesses to that treason. And to simply to be able to go out and take people out and kill them without any trial, it completely violates the Constitution and the Bill of Rights of this country. But with these two parties, they could give a damn less about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They violate them all the time.
Oh, absolutely. It's like it's non-existent, especially with the new bills.
They're worthless documents to them. They don't even worry about them.
Now,
look at how they're putting us all under surveillance.
I know.
That goes against the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, well, the FBI just announced this week a new surveillance system, face recognition, for every American, whether they're guilty of suspicion or anything. So we're going to be having our pictures taken.
Who's responsible for all of it? The Democrats and Republicans, because they've been in charge for 150 years. So anything going on in our country, they bear complete responsibility for it.
Absolutely. Now, Jesse, I've had arguments with people for years who still want to believe that the founding fathers supported us as a Christian nation and supported the two-party system.
That's total baloney, and in my book it shows it, because I devoted chapter 2 to my allies, and I have 3 of them in chapter 2, and they're pretty good people. The father of our country, George Washington, you should hear what he said about political parties. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, all 3 of them. And we're not listening to them. In fact, Washington said that it would be the destruction of this nation if we allow political parties to get control.
Absolutely. Well, that's called despotism as far as I remember.
Well, it's horrible, and again, we're not listening to the fathers of our country and what they had in mind for this nation. I guess they figure that people today know better.
Right. Well, you know, I have your book in front of me, and one of the quotes by Jefferson says, "The greatest good we can do our country is to heal its party divisions and make them one people."
Yeah, read the stuff from George Washington. He's
absolutely
way worse than Jefferson.
Oh, it was great. And wasn't it Jefferson that spent who knows how many hours cutting out a lot of the supposed Jesus stuff out of the Bible? And I remember reading on Jefferson that, you know, when people asked him about Christianity, he said he didn't find anything useful in it.
Well, the point is there should be a separation of church and state.
Absolutely.
The founding fathers were clear on that, and anybody that says they weren't is full of crap.
Well, what do you...
They're twisting history, because, you know, you have freedom of religion. You can believe what you want, but you cannot impose that beliefs on anyone else. And they were clear about that.
Well,
there should be a separation. That church should not be making laws of their church and their beliefs in church and imprisoning the rest of the country with those beliefs.
I totally agree, and I have to tell you, I was very happy to see you mention in your book, which is you're probably one of the first in I don't know how long, to mention Opus Dei, because a lot of people don't realize that 5 of our Supreme Court justices are members of Opus Dei.
Really?
So, you know, you look at that and you say, well, okay, whose agenda are they on? You know, are we going to be suffering under biblical law? And then you look at Mitt Romney, heaven help us all, and the fact that he'll take this country back to the Stone Age and make us wish for George W. Bush again.
Well, you know, it's interesting, because I believe they had Mitt Romney picked out 4 years ago. And you know how I know that? Do you remember those, right after Obama won the election, those ads on TV started appearing on Mormons? Remember those TV ads where they'd show a regular guy and he'd list this and he'd list that, and then right at the end of the ad, he'd look at the camera and say, "And I'm a Mormon."
Right, I remember those.
They were already greasing the skids for Romney.
Right.
They knew they had to get the country comfortable with Mormonism.
Well,
and I watched Bill Maher the other day. I mean, these guys believe God comes from this crazy planet out in the universe and all this crazy stuff. Did you see Bill Maher when he talked about it?
I didn't see that, but I've read a lot on the Mormons and their beliefs.
He brought out a record album that the Osmonds did way back in the 70s that talks all about it and shows pictures of it on the album of this planet. And they said